Yo, what up? It's your boy G. At alam nyo na, ito na naman tayo sa ating reaction video. Ang title ng ating video ay bakit nga ang Pilipinas ay natiling mahirap? 'Di ba? The hard truth, ang masakit na katotohanan. Ang video na to ay galing kay Grand Line Media. Ayan, subscribe nyo yan at manood kayo. Ang title niya, Why is the Philippines Still Poor? The Hard Truth. Ayan, ang kanyang basehan kung bakit daw mahirap ang Pilipinas. Tara, panoorin natin at tayo mag-react sa mga kanyang pahayag dito sa kanyang content. Let's go!
Is the Southeast Asia region.
Yeah.
This Asian region consists of 11 countries. Here you can find a country that is considered one of the richest in the world, and that is Singapore.
Yep,
But
Singapore.
in this
Mayaman
same
talaga na
region,
bansa yan.
you can also find countries that are below the poverty line and still labeled as poor countries. And one of these poor countries is the Philippines. A long time ago, the
Yep.
Philippines was richer than Singapore, though it was still
Di
poor.
ba, narinig niyo yun, yung sinabi niya na a long time ago, na dati ay mas mayaman ang Pilipinas kaysa sa Singapore. Di ba? Totoo naman yun, pero ngayon ang nangyari. Tara, tuloy natin.
Or way back then, this country had the potential to be one of the richest. And believe me when I say that the Philippines should be as rich a country as Singapore today. But what happened? Why does the Philippines remain poor? What are the real reasons why this nation cannot
Horakot.
overcome poverty? Why is
Dahil sa
Singapore
horakot
rich
yan.
compared to the Philippines if they had the same potential to begin with?
Let's go! Peso peso bill, yeah. Peso peso bill, yeah. Yeah.
Well, for us to understand this topic better, let's first have a little flashback of Philippine history. You know, there was a time when the Philippine peso was almost equal to the US dollar.
Di ba?
As of today, one US dollar is equivalent to 55 to 56 Philippine
Laki.
pesos.
Dati
But
magkaparehas
did
lang
you
daw.
know that almost 60 years ago, around the presidency of Diosdado Macapagal,
Diosdado Macapagal.
the exchange rate of peso to dollar was 2 to 1. It means that
Diba?
2 Philippine pesos were
One.
equal to 1 US dollar. But
One
how
US
does it
dollar.
matter though?
Yung 56
Well,
na
you see,
per dollar.
the US dollar is the world currency, meaning this currency is the standard when you want to get the true value of every currency in the world. So, if
Kumbaga,
your
ang basihan talaga ng pera sa kunyari, gusto mo malaman kung ang peso ba, kunyari, ang ano ba sa China, sa Japan, yen, di ba? Ang yen ba, gaano ba kataas? Ang basihan mo kung magkano sa palitan sa dolyar. Kumbaga, dolyar yung pinaka-core, parang araw ng lahat ng currency para malaman mo kung malaki ba ang peso, kung gaano ba kalaki ang renminbi pala yun sa China, di ba? Tatuloy natin.
currency is nearly equal to the US dollar, it only means that it is almost as valuable as the US dollar itself. And that was the Philippine peso way back then. But that was short-lived. During the Marcos regime, its value sank from 2 pesos to 3.7 pesos against the
bumaba
dollar. And
ng
since
konti
then, the
pag-upo ni
value of the
Marcos.
peso has never recovered to its
Hindi
original
na
value.
nakabalik, oh. Hindi
So
na
today,
na-recover.
it reached 56 pesos per dollar.
Hanggang
The
sa
Philippine
bumaba na ng
currency
bumaba.
gradually losing its value
Hindi
against
na
the US
bumalik sa
dollar is a
parehas
clear
lang ng-
indication that this country
Sabihin,
is not
humihirap.
progressing.
Oo, humihirap
The way
yung
to
bansa.
measure a
Ganun
country's
lang
wealth
naman yun
is
eh.
by its GDP per capita. The higher the GDP per capita, the richer the country. And Singapore is the richest country not only in Southeast Asia, but in the whole of Asia for having the highest GDP per capita, which is around 91,000.
Yo, partida mga tol, Singapore, napakaliit na bansa nun, pero sila pinakamayaman dito sa Asia, di ba? Isa sa pinakamayaman. Tara, tuloy natin.
Dollars. But wait, what is GDP? Well, it is the gross domestic product, or the total cost for all the products and services that a country spent for a whole year. And when we say GDP per capita, we are talking about per person, meaning the total amount of a country's GDP was divided by the total population of that specific country. So, in other words, in Singapore, on average, every person living there spends $91,000 every year. Of course, I'm not saying that every Singaporean actually spends that kind of money every year. Most of them do not. But some of them actually spend way more than that. So on average, the GDP per capita of Singapore is so high. And if we think about it, the reasons that they have that high GDP per capita are that they have the best economy And at the same time, they have a small population. Impressive, right? But what about the Philippines? Well, the GDP per capita of this country is only around $4,017. It is way too low compared to Singapore's $91,000. Okay, I guess Singapore is too much to use as a comparison. So let's compare the Philippines to its neighboring countries.
Vietnam.
Indonesia has
Indonesia.
$5,051 GDP per capita, while Thailand has $7,073 GDP per capita. These three
Thailand,
countries are all almost the same. Their economy relies on their natural resources. Their geographies are almost the same, since they all have the same access to the ocean. But why is the Philippines left behind? Why is it that, even with the abundance
Oh, wait lang. Wala
of natural resources, the Philippines still poor after so many years? Now, to help us understand more about the situation in the Philippines, let's again compare it to Singapore. The Philippines and Singapore are both victims of colonialism. Both countries suffered a lot from colonial rule. Singapore has been colonized by the British Empire for many years.
Briton na
On the
nakasakop
other
sa
hand,
kanila.
the Philippines has also been colonized
Spanya.
by different nations or
Spain.
empires.
Oh,
There is
iba-iba
no
rin.
denying that even after these countries became independent, they could hardly recover from the damage and losses of colonization, meaning both Singapore and the Philippines started from the lowest poverty line. Both
Parehas
countries
lang, di ba?
strive to progress. And of course, both countries want to progress. But the problem is that they got different results. Why though? Well, the quick answer is the bad governance.
Diba? Yun lang mga tol. Kaya tingnan mo, parehas lang naman daw kinumpara ang Pilipinas sa Singapore, na ang Singapore marami din sumakop na iba't ibang lahi. At sa Pilipinas ganun din. Pero bakit nahuli na pag-iwanan tayo? Dahil sa korupsyon sa mga leader, alam mo yung mga leader na magnanakaw.
Corruption and political dynasties that have dominated the Philippines for many years. You see, right after they gained independence, Singapore got its own leader, which was from their own people, and that was Lee Kuan Yew. The Philippines also got their own president after independence, and that was Manuel Rojas. By the way, Emilio Aguinaldo was the first president of the Philippines, but Manuel Rojas was the first president after the Philippines became independent. Anyway, from the very beginning, Singapore was fortunate to have its first genuine leader to serve its people and
Galing
nation.
ng unang leader nila.
Well, of course, I'm not saying that Manuel Rojas was not a good leader, but he and
good din
other
naman si
presidents of
Manuel
the Philippines
Rojas.
failed to accomplish as much as Lee
Good din
Kuan
ang mga
Yew had
leader
accomplished.
natin,
And I'm talking about destroying the corruption.
Korupsyon.
The first thing that Lee Kuan Yew
Yan lang.
did was to make sure that there would be no corruption in his administration.
Galing.
He definitely made sure that every public servant of the country, from the lowest to the highest position, was not corrupt.
Galing, di ba? Talagang yung presidente raw ng Singapore, talagang sinurbol niya na simula sa pinakamababang ranggo sa gobyerno hanggang sa pinakamataas ay dapat walang magkukorap. Walang magnanakaw ng pera ng bayan. Kaya sila, alam mo yun, mayaman. Ganyan lang yan eh. Daratuloy natin.
But then again,
Nakakaingit.
the corruption rate was not zero in Singapore during his term, but it
Yayaman
was
din ang
very
Pinas.
low, not only in the Asia, but in all countries in the world. What he did was he founded the CPIB, or the Corrupt Practices Investigation Bureau, and the sole purpose of this agency is to fight corruption.
Di ba?
And it was really
Tama yun.
effective. They combated corruption
Actually,
not only in the public sector,
Yo mga tol, actually marami naman talagang bansang korupsyon katulad sa Africa, 'di ba? Sobrang hirap din doon dahil ang dami talagang korupsyon. Syempre pera 'yan, 'di ba? Pero kaya ang galing mapapabilib ka sa isang bansa na hindi korap. Katulad sa Japan, hindi naman yung Japan simula noon hanggang ngayon mayaman pa rin. Paano maayos sila, matitino sila, hindi sila magnanakaw Yun lang naman yun eh. Tara tayo natin.
but in the private sector as well. On the contrary, the corruption rate in the Philippines keeps surging. As a matter of fact, in 2023, the Philippines ranked as the 115th least corrupt nation out of 180 countries.
Oh, pang 115 tayo, 180 lahat ng mga parang corrupt daw ganun. Tama ba? 115 tayo, halos malapit na tayo no? O pinakamahirap. Pero kahit naman corrupt man o mahirap, ang baba natin eh.
Meaning,
Tuloy
this
natin
country
yan.
is one of those countries where corruption is rampant. The second key to Singapore's success is its meritocratic system. This system was also established during the Lee Kuan Yew administration. The idea of this system is simple, yet very effective. They will only select leaders or government officials based on their merits. You cannot run for the candidacy as a government
Diba?
official if your background is not excellent. Only those people with a good educational background and a clean life record can become the public servants of Singapore.
Ngayon daw sa Singapore daw, ang pwede lang maupo is yung talagang may background na pinag-aralan, walang bahid ng dumi, walang bahid ng mga walang bahid ng mga krimen na nagawa o basta bad record sa sa mismong buhay niya, buong buhay niya at sa social public, 'di ba? Wala siya kaya doon ka lang pwede maging presidente. Pero dito sa atin sa Pilipinas ay kahit sino pwede maging presidente, kahit si Manny Pacquiao pwede maging presidente. Can you imagine that, boksingero? Parang sinabi mong si Holyfield o si Mike Tyson tatakbo ng presidente ng Amerika. Di ba nakakatawa? Tatuloy natin. Dito
But
lang sa
again,
Pinas
in
yan.
the Philippines,
Ayan.
anyone can run from the lowest to the highest position in their government.
Yeah, kahit sino.
It was just quite normal
Kahit ako pwede ako may
for a
presidente sa
democratic country,
Pilipinas.
right?
Ito yung boto niyo.
Anyone can have the right to become the leader of the country. But that is the main
Lahat
issue
ng mga
here,
tropa masaya.
because the Philippines has no meritocratic system. Anyone can run for a spot in the government. Even those people who do not finish their education can run.
Ayun o.
Even if you don't have credibility, you can run.
You can run.
Even if you already have a record of
Ayun,
corruption,
oo.
you can still run.
Nagnakaw na, nahuli
Well,
na. Pwede
it
pa
is
rin
not
tumakbo.
actually a problem if you
Dapat
think
hindi
about
ganun
it. As long as the Filipinos do not vote for them,
Wala.
and only vote for those candidates who are actually capable, then it is not a problem if they run. But that is another main root of the Philippines' poverty, because the majority of Filipinos keep voting for unworthy public
Di
servants.
ba? O majority daw dito sa ating bansa sa Pilipinas ay laging binoboto natin yung mga hindi namang karapat dapat pero binoboto nyo, mahal na mahal nyo. Ba't kayo ganyan? Tara, tuloy natin.
All right, so what are you saying? That we're wrong? Oh, everybody's wrong.
I'm not saying that the Philippines never had good leaders and public
Oo naman,
servants,
may mga
because
good
they
leader
actually
talaga.
did. And I am not saying that all Filipinos don't know how to identify
Yeah,
worthy candidates.
marami din Pilipinong
but
alam
sadly,
kung sino ang
the majority
dapat.
are not.
Pero
You see,
majority daw,
based on the
karamihan,
historical
wala.
election data in the Philippines, the candidate who is a
Daming
well-known
mga
celebrity has the
Dang.
highest success rate in
It's
winning
crazy.
the election, because the majority of people in this country keep voting for candidates who are famous instead of those who are actually deserving because of their excellent educational background.
Yun lang, dito sa Pilipinas, kaya natin binoboto yung mga gusto natin maging presidente kasi sikat. Yun lang, wala na. Kinabukasan, wala na, walang kaalam-alam. Damn, kawawang bansa. Tara, tuloy natin. Dapat di
In
na
other
kayo ganun
words,
bumoto,
the
ha?
majority of people are obsessed with putting celebrities in office. But that's not the worst. The worst thing is that they keep voting for the same person or the same family to become their public officials. Yes, I am talking about the political dynasties that have been happening in the Philippines for centuries. If you're going to review the history of the Philippines, you will notice that many powerful families have already been elected to office, generation by generation. From the president down to barangay officials, political dynasty is noticeable in this country. You will be surprised if I tell you that in some parts or provinces of the Philippines, only one clan has been governing the land for decades.
Marcos lang ang nagtagal
But what if I
talaga.
told you that that was not the longest political dynasty ever recorded in this
Bakit?
country?
Sino?
Well, in La Union,
La Union.
Philippines,
La Union.
there is a
Oh.
political clan that is believed to have had the longest political dynasty for over a century.
Sino yun?
That was too many years of service, right? This
Ilan?
clan should already have made their own kingdom. Speaking of kingdoms, these clans in every political dynasty are already insanely rich people in the Philippines. So it is not surprising that if you rank the richest
Ani
people in this
Villaro.
nation, most of them are from the political dynasty. I think you already have a clear understanding of why the Philippines has been poor until now.
Ayan,
Believe
gets
me,
nyo na.
if this nation has good governance with a zero to low rate of corruption,
Nako po.
it will become one of the richest countries
For
not
real.
only in Asia,
Oo.
but in the world.
Sabi ko sa inyo, kapag ang Pilipinas talaga nagkaroon ng gobyernong maayos, yung tamang pag-iisip, disiplinado, malinis, alam mo yun, talagang mas mayaman pa tayo sa Amerika talaga at sa Japan, naniwala ka sa akin, dahil tayo ang peerless ng silanganan. Tinan mo nga ang China ngayon, ninanakaw sa atin yung ninanakaw sa atin yung tawag doon, yung karagatan natin kasi talagang lahat dyan, maraming source of minerals and oil, di ba? Tatuloy natin. Ayan, pakinggan niyo yung sabihin sa uli.
Every opportunity for wealth exists in the Philippines. From the abundance of natural resources to access to the ocean to a
Ganda,
lot of
Pilipinas,
tourist
men.
destinations, there are many skilled Filipinos,
Pinakamalupit
not
sa
only in this
buong
country,
mundo.
but all over the world. And this country also has many citizens who can speak English.
Diba? English,
This
magaling,
country
tataling
almost
galing
has the
mag-English
key
mga
to
tao
becoming
dito.
a first world country,
First
except
world?
for good
Eh,
governance.
nasa third
But
world pa
having
rin
good
tayo.
governance will remain a dream if the people in this country keep electing corrupt and unworthy politicians. And in order to achieve that, every Filipino should become aware of who is really deserving to serve the country. And the key? Well, it is education. You see, this country is still considered to have a weak education system because Filipino students are still among the world's weakest in math, reading
Lang.
comprehension, and science,
Oo nga,
according to
dami.
the global assessment,
Sayang.
with the country ranking 77th out of 81
Diba?
countries and performing worse than the global average in all
panghuli tayo.
categories. But not only that, in the
Walang alam sa
Philippines,
math,
nearly
di marunong
20%
magsulat,
of
di marunong
Filipino
magbasa.
children are not attending school or do not have access to school. And that is one of the big reasons why the majority of Filipinos can be easily fooled by the propaganda of corrupt politicians
Madali
and
tayo.
political dynasties.
O, di ba? Madali daw tayo maloko dahil karamihan dito, di marunong sa math, di marunong magsulat, walang kaalam-alam, di ba? Kaya madali tayo maloko ng gobyerno, ng tatakbo. Gagamitin nila yung kasikatan nila, babayaran ka na lang para bumoto. Hanggang sorry, bababa ng bababa, wala eh. Pati yung bumoboto, mangmang eh.
And if all Filipinos have access to a good
Awa,
education, they will soon realize that their nation actually needs good leaders, and they will raise their standard in selecting government officials. Well, this matter is not only happening in the Philippines. Corruption and bad governance are
naman.
also happening in all poor countries around the world.
Marami talaga.
But one thing you can notice in every rich country is that they prioritize the education of the next generation over anything else. And if the Philippines do that as well, perhaps someday this country will become one of the rich countries in Southeast Asia.
Oh, alam niyo na yung mga susi,
This-
mga tol, yun ang susi na kailangan na sa ibang bansa, sa Amerika, mga first world country, may corruption din diyan, di mawawala yan, natural yan. Pero mas pina-prioritize nila yung edukasyon para sa next generation. Kaya kung tayo, pa-prioritize natin yung edukasyon sa mga kabata, katalinuhan na ibibigay natin, puro knowledge sa saksak mo. Balang araw ang Pilipinas ay magiging pinakamayaman hindi lang sa Asia, sa buong mundo. Siya na nagsabi noon at ako naniniwala rin ako doon. Kayo tol, ano bang opinion niyo diyan? Pwede naman kayong mag-comment sa baba at dito na matatapos ng ating video. Maraming salamat nga pala sa mga nag-subscribe at patuloy lang ang ating video at dyan sa gilid papakita ko dyan. Yan yung aking mga videos. Pwede nyo panoorin yan. Mga latest kong labas. Yan. At dito na magtatapos. Mag-ingat kayo lagi. Stay hydrated. Peace.